Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Unraveled and Rising podcast. If this is your first time, thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it. And if this is something you come to regularly, we so appreciate you. Thank you very much. We're excited about our episode today. And of course, I always have Kimberly and Terry here because and it's been a while since all three of us recorded together. So I'm so glad we can get together today.
Yes. I am refreshed and renewed after coming back from San Diego. Oh,
yes.
Love it. So fun.
And the thing is, you guys, we have some exciting announcements today because I'm actually traveling to Denver at the end of May.
Yeah.
And we're going to record together, all three of us in a studio. And so we're very excited about that, to be together in one room. We haven't done that before, the three of us. So it's exciting. So look forward to those episodes in June, July. We're going to be launching all of those and hope to do that more often. So look forward to that. Today, we have an exciting guest that Kimberly and Terry both know. I am meeting her for the first time, and I'm excited to hear her story. I feel like those stories and how we can relate to each other is so important to share here. And so thanks for coming, like I said, and we hope that you can relate to this. We'd love it if you comment. If this resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share it out to someone who might need to hear it. We would appreciate that. So Stephanie Schoolmeester is an award-winning speaker, educational leader, and nervous system-based women's mentor who helps women heal survival patterns, reclaim their voice, and transform their scars into the message and medicine they are here to share. She's honored as one of Denver's 7 everyday heroes for pioneering social and emotional learning in Adams 5-star school district, Stephanie Bridges' trauma-informed healing, nervous system regulation, soulful speaking, and embodied leadership. That's a mouthful, and that sounds pretty impressive there, Stephanie. Kimberly, you have a specific relationship with her. Do you mind sharing that and introducing her more?
Sure. So Stephanie and I have known each other probably, I don't know, maybe 6 years or so through Polka Dot Powerhouse. But then last year, I entered her coaching program. I had, as we talked about, we've had on here before, Dr. Ed, who was my coach for a period of time. And I just decided I wanted to find a coach to tap more into my feminine side. So that's what I would, and to do some energy healing and along with the other counseling and stuff I was doing. So that's what I went to Stephanie for. It was a year program, spent a lot of time at her farm, her beautiful horse Jules, who is so healing. So it was nice. She has a yurt in her backyard. So we all get to just be in this very tranquil place together as sisters in a sisterhood, and just really developed a very special relationship with several of the women that were in the program together, because you laugh together, you cry together, you heal together. And Stephanie led us all through that. And she has a remarkable story herself, which is one of the reasons I asked her to be on here. So I'm going to let her tell her story. Welcome, Stephanie.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And I'll take you on a journey of my story. So I think with a lot of us, when I look at what was our childhood like, and I think that's so important when you look at healing. So when I look at my childhood, I look at a little girl that, of course, always wanted love from their parents. And I came into my family at a time where my father was an entrepreneur. He was in a 3rd generation of a well drilling family. And he, as we all are entrepreneurs, he was very, very, very busy, and he did not have time. He was actually a workaholic. And I came in as a surprise, and I'm a very sensitive soul, and I could feel that. I could feel that I was, you too, Michelle. I could feel that it felt like I wasn't wanted. It felt like I could see him with the relationship with my siblings. And I'll never forget, there was one time when I don't know how old I was. I think like 7. We were on a family vacation. My great aunt was there, and she was like my saving grace. And I went in the room where my siblings were, and I came back crying. And I said to her, they don't want me. They don't want me there. And I just felt this like abandonment ever since I was little. And so this relationship with my dad, or lack of, I had from a very little girl. And even when I talked to my mom about it today, she's like, he didn't want another child. In fact, if he did, he wanted a boy so he could take over the business. So I really, I was on it when I could feel that, but of course he loved me, but it just wasn't the same. And so then he got cancer. And I was 10, and he did have that one conversation with me. He stayed home from church and he said, like, I feel this. And he tried to really patch up our relationship. So I'm grateful for that. But he ended up, telling us he had cancer, and he passed away 6 months later. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I share these two things is because the relationship now compounded with this grief of now losing my father and really feeling this abandonment. I had no way to handle this. And my family did not know how to process emotions. In fact, I never really saw my dad cry. I would hear my mother cry in her room, and I would just sit by her room and I would just listen, and I would just cry with her, but she never cried with me or the family. It was always like, just stuff it down. And so at that time, my brother was struggling. My entire family, there's 5 of us. I was the youngest of 5, if I didn't say that, was having these breakdowns. And so what I did at that point, I was like, I need to pull it together. I need to be like that perfect little girl from my mom, so she can and she took over my dad's business. There was so much she was holding on to, and I could feel that. So I just took it all on as a 10-year-old. And so I just held all my emotions. And this was my life until I went to college. I found this amazing man that I fell in love with. And I had a really hard time getting close to him. I had to go to counseling because I had all these walls built up. I was so afraid of getting hurt again. I just knew intuitively I didn't think I could handle it. But love took over, and I ended up marrying him, even though my intuition is also very, very good. And my intuition told me that he was not going to live very long. And so I even broke off our engagement. I don't usually share all this, but I broke off our engagement because I was terrified. But then again, I was like, I just loved him so much. So we went through it, and we ended up getting married. And within 6 months, he passed away of a car accident. And one thing I didn't share with this was a way I coped was that perfectionism. Another way I coped was people pleasing and a workaholic. So at the moment of his accident, it was a Sunday. We were both teachers. We were both on break. I had to go to my classroom. I would sneak in every Sunday because I had to work. So he took my truck because it was a icy day. I took his car because he said, Stephanie, I just want you to be safe. And that still chokes me up to this day, because I had to then deal with the guilt of him having my truck, of him being in the ice, thinking, well, if he would have been in a safer car, and me handling that guilt. So going through that trauma, and it was interesting, because I just shared this with someone the other day. My mom, I shared with you at the beginning, was in surgery, and they were talking about the alarms going off because her blood pressure went up. And I said I'm now married. I say I have a husband in heaven and a husband on earth. And I said to my husband last night, I said, that would have been really hard for me, because I went right back into the hospital room. I could feel that hospital time with my late husband, those alarms going off, and just that trigger that took me right back there. And that was just yesterday. So even though I have done 22 years of deep, deep healing work, it's amazing how much our bodies remember. The book, The Body Keeps the Score, and takes us back to those moments. So because of that moment, I always say it was my scar. My mom actually came up with this, my scar to my star. It was a moment that my body just couldn't handle it. It imploded. In fact, I went to skiing. I was a ski instructor, beating men down the mountain in the moguls, to I can't even walk my first graders down the hallway. And I went to doctor to figure out what was wrong with me. They diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, Graves' disease, chronic fatigue, and of course, PTSD, anxiety, and all the things that came along with the trauma, and 17 different medications. And I still look back at that moment, and I look at you, Kimberly, as this amazing nurse. And I was like, I didn't know any better. I thought, well, they're the doctor. But every medicine it was having their reaction to each other. So I lived like that for years. I lived in so much pain, physically and emotionally, until I discovered holistic healing. And that is what changed my life. I found a breath and energy work that took me from barely surviving to thriving. And it was through my own, I put my hands on my body. It was finding that healing mechanism that we all have in our bodies, that we all know, that started to heal itself with the breath, with the energy, with the movement. And so once I was able to heal myself and come off those 17 medications, I knew that as a teacher, as an educator, I knew I had to learn the technique to be able to share it with others. So that was my path I did it privately within 3 chiropractic offices for a couple years. I took off of some teaching just to heal because I knew I needed to heal. And then went back to school and started to teach. And I took this back to my students. And I was taking this and all these modalities that I was learning. And everybody was saying, I don't know what she's doing in her classroom. Like they were giving me the behavior kids, the ADD, the neurodivergent, all the behavior issues all across the board. And I was having really high growth in my classroom. So sometimes I'd have 30 people in, like the superintendent up to all these different, educators and people, the leaders in the school system were trying to figure out what I was doing, but I didn't want to tell them. I was afraid I was going to get in trouble because I didn't want to tell them I was doing breath work. I had all these minutes to teach in math and reading, but I knew it was the secret sauce to these kids being successful. And so just wrapping that piece up with the school, I ended up feeling the call to leave, to the call that what I teach now, to listening to your soul's call and following those whispers. But during that time, my principal asked me, she said, Stephanie, well, what do you want to do? And at that time, I was terrified to speak in public. They always made me train because they said, you've got this formula, please share it so we can all learn from you. But I was terrified to teach in front of my peers. And I took a deep breath. And the first thing I said, I never want to teach another math lesson as long as I live. And I don't know, that came out and I was like trying to get it back. I felt like I just burnt a bridge. I was like, I didn't, obviously I didn't connect it to math. But then I took a deep breath and then I sat with it. I feel like it was God just coming through. And I said, you know what, Kate? I said, I want to teach teachers what I do in the classroom that makes my students be successful. And I stopped there. And then she looked at me. She says, well, tell me more. And I told her a little bit about what I was doing. It was like a moment I was coming out of the closet and sharing with her. And then I said, I only want to teach 10 hours a week. And this was me at that time, 60 to 80 hours a week, the workaholic that the custodian was telling at 11 o'clock at night, Stephanie, you must go home. And I'm telling her this. And she's like, what? Who are you? And you know what? This is so amazing. 2 weeks later, I got a text. I was in a mastermind and she said, I don't know how you did it. She said, but we are having a meeting with the superintendent right now. And he's saying these kids need help and they need social emotional learning and they want to bring a specialist in and they want to bring her, I makes me cry to even say it, 10 hours a week at the school. And she said, your name just was rippling through this entire, because everybody knew my reputation in the school district about the social emotional, what I was gifted in. And she said, I feel like this is for you, Stephanie. And so I got to bring that into a school system. And then I got to bring it in at the higher level, in the district level, before I ended up stepping out completely in the school system. But that's really where, when I look at my life, and I think this is so important for all of us, and this is what I teach and coach now, what happened to you in your life that now you have healed from, that now becomes your survival pathway through of your thriving, and how are you giving back in the world? And so I did that through work with kids. I was able to understand their heart. And now I've taken that not only from healing, but I've taken that from healing, nervous system regulation, now into helping women truly design lives and businesses around their soul. And my speaking, I've worked so hard on, I have a mantra, your mission is greater than your fear. And working through my nerves, working through the shaking, the wanting to throw up, to being able to speak now everywhere, and now being able to help women speak their truth, find their story, and be able to share that story out with the world. That is something I'm really proud of that I'm able to do now, because I have so many women that come to me and say, Stephanie, I have a story, I have a message, I feel it, but I'm terrified to speak. And so that's something now that I help the women that work with me, and my horse helps heal those blocks as well. So that was a lot. That is my story. And is there anything else you want me to share?
I love that. And I love a couple of things came up for me when you did all this work after your husband passed away. Did you then have to go back to trying to resolve the issues with your dad? Is that kind of part of the work that you had to do? Because I think a lot of us struggle with, parent stuff. It's not that we don't love our parents or that they don't love us, but it's what you said, and like they don't know how to show it necessarily, or don't know how to do it. But how did you get through working with those issues with your father?
That's such a great question. So I had to do my own inner child work. I had to do and really go back to those places that felt abandoned. I saw, and I think this is so true with our life, we see these triggers. I would say triggers are our teachers. I would get these triggers and I would see these things happening, but really what I knew I needed to do was the inner work for myself. So one of the main practices that I did, that I teach every single time I'm doing this work, is giving myself that love of what I lacked. So I felt I lacked love from my dad, and I was looking for it in all the wrong places. And then when I realized what I was doing, first is awareness, right? We get awareness around it. When I realized what I was doing, and then I was like, okay, I could feel the hole in my heart. Once I realized that hole in my heart and what I was trying to grasp to fill it, I knew it was only my job. So I took responsibility for, nobody can do this but myself. And it was, I will share this. There was a moment, and I was actually teaching this to women at the time, which was interesting. And I was in my yard, and I was remarried at the time. And my current husband, my husband on earth, I always say, was doing something with his tractor. And I was angry with him about something. And there was this moment of clarity going, Stephanie, you are asking him to fill this hole that is not his responsibility. You need to practice what you teach. And it was like this moment I sat there and I got this gratitude. I was like, just gratitude for him, for loving me and realizing, okay, pour it back into you, pour it back into you, pour it. And he looked at me and he said, Steph, he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing, everything is right. It was a moment of clarity that I realized I am responsible. It is not his responsibility. And from that moment, this was probably, I would say, 15 years ago, it's just been pouring back into myself and really, and anytime I have a trigger, it's that awareness, come back to me. How do I need to fill this? And I feel that with nervous system regulation and the breath work and all the healing modalities that I do. But it has literally been, it's been a game changer. It has been an absolute game changer. And I will just share this piece with it too, because it's generational. Like my mom and I, one of the reasons I feel like we're so close, she also had the same thing happen with her father. Her father went off to war, did not see her for her first year of his life. And she also felt just like me. And so to have someone understand me and to know it was generational for her, she feels seen by me, I feel seen by her, and we have that bond and we can talk about it. And I also there's healing with it where I can say, Mom, I felt like this when I was little, instead of my other brothers and sisters saying, Stephanie, no, that you're not speaking about the same dad I had. I'm like, but I had a very different relationship. So that has been very healing, is giving back. The bottom line is giving myself the love and healing that part myself with the work, the nervous system work that I do.
Well, a few things came up for me. Lots of things came up. But listening to your story, and I know I've heard it before, but it's very interesting. I mean, this is what you do with purpose and all that stuff. I just truly believe we all come here with a planned path that was already formed before we were ever put in our mother's womb. We were known, right? And so it just sounds like that was your journey. It was losing your dad, and then you meet someone that goes through the exact same thing, which will trigger past trauma. And it was that abandonment or that grief that you went through with your dad. And so you said triggers are teachers, and yes, they are I would never I tell the women at the prison, I never want anyone to go through trauma, but it can be a great teacher, because we're never going to erase what has happened. What's done is done, but we can learn from it. And so when you're talking about the program that you took into the school, more than that and the breath, you knew everything you had was within you. So you didn't need anything outside of you. It was all within you. But more than what you brought them to learn, the modalities, you brought your presence. Mm-hmm. You brought a healed regulatory state that even made it possible for you to co-regulate with them. And so you provided space. Mm-hmm. Before that modality, they felt your energy. They felt your healing. They felt that presence and that calm within you. So that is just phenomenal. It's beautiful.
I love that. And Terry, I just want to share just really something really quick around that, because I think that is so important, is when we do our work, we do regulate. When we regulate ourselves, we become that co-regulation.
Yes.
And I will never forget when I was teaching this to a little kindergartner. It's really quick. And he was doing the breath work and he's sitting right by me. And I'm doing this with a kindergarten class. And he has his eyes closed and I'm just looking at him and I can feel his energy shift. And he looks at me and his eyes get like this. And he's like, Mrs. Schoolmeester, you are magical. And he like pops up and he pops into my lap. And I looked at him and I said, it's not me that's magical. It's you that's magical.
Yes.
I just helped you tap into your magic. And so that's what it comes to, Carrie. We all have it inside of us. And I think that is like what I'm here to do, is help ignite that spark and help people remember who they are and what God would, whatever your belief is, has brought you into this world, and go out there and share it, because we do have everything we need inside. I love that you brought that up. That's so beautiful. It's so
I think that's fulfillment, and I think that's abundance to its full, to its capacity.
Yes.
And I believe it's all within us and it's possible for everyone.
Me too.
Kimberly, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I was just thinking about the part where she talked about, which we've talked about before, you know, pouring into yourself, working on yourself. When I think about some of the adult children that I help with their parents or caregivers, it's always, I don't have time, or like that's selfish to take that time for yourself. So if you could talk a little bit about that, I think it'd be very helpful.
Yes, that is such a great point. And honestly, something I had to overcome myself, because society, and this is something that I love that yours, like as you're talking about unraveling in this podcast, is you have to unravel all of these conditions that we've had. One of these conditions, especially for women, we need to work harder to get what we need. And it's like in order, and we are not part of that. Like we were told, you are not part of that. So one of the things, when I learned that it was absolutely necessary that I took the time to heal myself, because if I didn't and have these modalities that people were helping me heal this part of me and bring myself back, I would have nothing left to give. And that's the thing I think we all need to realize. If you don't have that health, if you don't have that, not even, I say even the top of the cup full, I always say overfilling. And that needs to start with us. One of the models I have this year, that I serve myself at the highest capacity so I can serve the world and my clients at their highest capacity. And I also have on my phone, and this was where it was the game changer in my business, because I knew that I needed to have a principle to really guide me. And the principle is, I have it on my phone every single day in green. The more I take care of myself, the more impact and the more income I make. And when I made that, it was a rule for myself from 8 to 10, I'm literally pouring into myself with practices. That is where not only my life got so much better, but my business got to this level that I was like, wouldn't it be great if, I was able to be in that 6-figure, mark. And it was like, it happened just like that, because 1, I took care of myself. And 2, I focused on serving me and then serving my clients. And then everything happened, because everything comes from serving. But we don't serve anymore from that empty cup. And I think that is, Kimberly, I'm so glad you said that, because it's such a mind shift, but it's an energy shift. And, and we also have to know that we are the ones that are going first with this, that the whole world is not on board with this yet. And that's okay. But that is a model that I think is so great that we're all setting, because it's essential.
Well, and what's really awesome about that is we've talked, Dr. Joe, we talk about the quantum space. You do not need a lot of people to shift the world. And so if you have just a small amount of people doing this work within space and time and not living from our body, you can shift a whole consciousness, really. And that's what's happening. I truly believe that that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing in the world right now.
You know what
some people might say it's darkness and there's all this horrible things in the world, but I think it's shifting. I think there's a huge shift of awareness happening. So many paradigm shifts. So when we can just keep ourselves calm and regulated and actually speak that life into people and not doom and gloom, I think we help change the world.
100%.
There's always going to be darkness. We just have to focus on the light, always. But the thing that came to me when you had that moment of clarity in the yard, Stephanie, was that damn Jerry Maguire movie when he says, "You complete me." I'm like,
that's
why
never
is true with us?
That's never true.
Damn line, because it's like, you don't complete me, I complete me.
Yes. Or that one that says, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me."
Yeah,
that is such a lie.
Yes.
Words.
I just think a lot of us search for a mate to complete us
To
because
fill that hole.
is
Yeah.
romantic. It's a romanticized, and everything you see, all the images and all the movies and all the everything you see, it's that you need to have that connection to be able to be complete and whole. And I think a lot of us, believe that and still do. So I think that's really important that you said that moment of clarity, because I think that's important for everybody out there to hear. I feel like, and you're going to laugh at me about this, but I kind of feel like this in this life, I'm single and I have been single for a while, was not real successful in relationships to this point. But I just said to myself, maybe this is just supposed to be this life is for learning about this. And next life, I'm going to be able to master this, because I feel like those kinds of ideas that were ingrained in me as a child are still hard for me to get away from in regards to a mate. And it's also how I feel about me, right? And how I feel about myself in a relationship and the value that I bring to the table. So I think those kinds of things are very common for a lot of people. And I just thought that was such a powerful thing you said.
One of the things I think with relationships is that I think relationships are just completely meant to evolve us. They were never meant to be the fix and the thing to satisfy us. And so if that's what we're
complement each other.
Yes, if that's what we're looking for, we're always going to be disappointed. Because the person that needs to show up for you is you, right? And so when we can love ourselves, we've got to be able to receive love to ever be able to give love.
Yes.
And so many times I was in relationships that I was asking men to give me love that had not the capacity to love themselves, and yet I'm asking them to do it for me. Right. And so looking back at that, and again, it goes back to my dad. He was a Marine in the Marines and had PTSD, struggled emotionally, and then going through my parents' divorce, my whole childhood. I can remember 2nd and 3rd grade going to school with headaches because my dad would smoke and have Grand Marnier every single night, and I was sick. And then they finally divorced when I was 6th grade, going into junior high. So it was my entire informative, most crucial years. And I didn't have a mother or a father who were emotionally available. And if you are familiar with John Bowlby, he does a lot of work on attachment. And when you can't attach to your caregivers, that is going to affect you and your future relationships and that becomes the journey. That becomes the journey back to self.
100%. And, just with that, I just wrote this down too, is reminding me of how much compassion not only do we have to have for ourselves, but one thing that really helped me, to go back to the question about my dad, that helped me heal that, is having compassion for him.
Yeah.
And the more stories I hear from my mom telling me of his upbringing, again, that generational.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, that man was carrying so much. He did the best he could. And, just like I had more, and this is actually really a beautiful conversation, because I actually had more healing after he passed away.
Yeah.
Because I was able to see these patterns, and I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, like I am like you. He was more of a hero to me than ever because of what he was able to do and how he was able to still show up. And yes, it wasn't like in the way I wanted him to, but my gosh, he did amazing. So finding that compassion, and also going back to that relationship, one of my big things in relationship now is I want to be the best version of myself. And I just I want my relationship together to make us even better. And I think that's so important. And in order to do that, one of the things my new model I've been teaching this year is how we have to root and we have to regulate first and foremost. And when we do that, that's when we rise. Right. And that's when we help the people around us to do their healing work. Because again, like you mentioned, the co-regulation is huge, but we need to be regulated in ourselves in order for that to go out into the world.
Yeah. And what I think people don't understand in relationships, and what I've learned personally for myself, is that what shows up in your life is you. And so if you're not healed and you're not regulated and you've got these things going on, you're going to see that in every relationship that you enter. And it's just a mirror. It's just a mirror to who we are. And so it can be a great thing. And when we've done some incredible healing and inner child work and forgiveness and taking away the shame and the blame game, and actually turning it back on us and taking responsibility for, I had to take responsibility for, why did I think that my worth was so little my whole life, that I accepted so less of myself? Yes. And that wasn't just my ex-husband. That wasn't my abusive relationship in the beginning. I played a part. And I also caused things on my own children. And, you know, I had a son recently who just said, Mom, I'm going to start my own therapy. And we sat down and I said, you know, there's going to be things that come up that are directly related to me. And, you know, I'm preparing myself that when there's conversations that come up that are not very comfortable, it's not about me. This is his healing. I played a part, and I'm going to pull my big girl panties up, and I'm going to take it, because yes, I did the best that I could, and that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I was also going to say that the other thing that you talked about that really I think is so important today, and I don't know how, if you're still doing the work with the in the school district, are you still doing that or no?
No, I am not. I do work with kids, and I've worked with children and families at my farm, because my dream was always to bring my horse and my border collie to the school, and I couldn't, but now I can. So they come to the farm when I do that.
I could just see you trying to get them in the car.
I know.
Get on the bus.
Down the hallway, you know.
Sneak them in the back
in my classroom, but that was it. That was all I could get.
I would love it if, you know, because kids today just so need people like you in their lives, Stephanie. It's so important. I just feel like kids are suffering.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that they're suffering like that. And so we need more people like you working with these kids. And hopefully in other, you know, school districts and so forth. But, you know, we need to create maybe a nonprofit that can at least give grants to kids to be able to come to your farm and other places like you throughout the country who can help, because I just feel like there's just so much hurt happening right now, and it's sad.
They just seem so lost.
They are. And, you know, when I go back to that, when I look at that, I mean, I had children coming to me. It's still, it's heartbreaking. But they would say, Stephanie, you know, they said, Mrs. Schoolmeester, like, I had a plan. They had a plan, a suicide plan. And when they learned these simple breath work patterns that I was teaching, just like that, they not only, this is why I ended up getting on the news. It wasn't really, well, it was me sparking in them what they already knew inside of them. But once they realized they had the power, like you said, Terry, then they came to me. I just share this really quick. One day I showed up and I had this message in my inbox, and it was a PowerPoint. And I was actually asked to share what I was doing in the classroom with like the higher ups in the district, so they could see what I was doing, because they were seeing the ripple effect. And I was like, how did somebody create what I am actually creating in my presentation? It was a 5th grader. She took everything, her and a group of kids, everything that I taught them, and they came up with a PowerPoint, and they said, would you let us create this connection club that we can teach our peers about this? So that's what they did. And I would sit in the back of the classroom after they would teach my lesson with them. And I sat back there and I just cried. And I said, go get the principal. She needs to see what you're doing. And that's what happened. But that's the beauty. And that's where I see this work happening is, one, it sparked that's work still going on in the school district, which makes me really happy. But the thing I have to really sit with is, when I teach this to adults and the moms of these kids, I always say this, even when I speak, please go back and teach this to your child. Please go back and at least teach them these simple tools that I'm teaching you. Please regulate yourself so it will co-regulate your child. Mm-hmm. So I believe that is the first step, because that's going to be the ripple effect in the family. So that's really where I'm focusing right now. But I do want to have kids back at
and what I love teaching the women at the prison, and what I learned for myself, is that even being a mother being pregnant, like, we look at the world, and one thing I want to add to this, to all of us and to our listeners, is that we can put our hand on our heart at any time in the day. We can find gratitude in our heart and send it out to the world. Mm-hmm. We are that powerful that we can create a ripple effect in the world just by sending love to the world. And so when we think of all the bad things that are happening, there are so many equally great things happening. And going back to that awakening, this is our, not only do I think it's all because of all of our healing, it's our duty to actually send loving, compassion, kindness out to the world and to those kids that are struggling. But when we think about the state that we were in when none of this information was available and healthcare didn't know about it, I love being a part of Dr. Joe's Inner Health Coalition right now, because he's on a mission to change healthcare. And it's very exciting to be a part of that. And I love that he's building the data for that. But we were all pregnant mothers. Our kids were regulated through our emotions in the womb. So when we're talking about a high stress world out there, with COVID. You think about all these women who were pregnant during COVID and all that stuff, and now all these babies that are born, and all the things that collective trauma created. Then we wonder why some of the things are in the state that they are. Right? Because as mothers, I mean, I think the work starts there. Pregnant women who are pregnant with children, making sure that they're regulated and they know this work, because they really are. That's the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that, Terry.
Yeah.
The other thing I really related to Stephanie on too, I was a very emotional child as well and very sensitive. And my family made fun of that. And they, did not. And so I was ashamed of it for so long. And because of that, I built a bunch of walls just like you did. Mm-hmm. So completely get that. And it's taken me until my 50s. I'm in my 50s now. It has taken me till my 50s to understand that it's okay to be sensitive.
It is.
And I think, sorry. Well, one thing with that is I think that's one of the things we need to look at going back to our childhoods. My mom, we still joke about this. She was like, "Oh, Stephanie, you're so sensitive." She still says that to this day. I'm like, "Mom, do you realize that is like number?" And she's like, "I know, look at what I do with kids and look at what I do with women." But with that, I think it's so important. We go back and we look at those things that we were too much, or that was our gifts. And we many times, what the women I work with anyway, come to me and they have turned off those gifts. And when they start doing this soul work, I call it soul work, and they start finding out who they are, who they always were. It's not a reinvention, it's a return home. Right. And they find themselves, they reignite the spark, and they're like, actually, that's the best part of me. And with that, I just want to bring that back to that light is when you find that place, many times there is things you need to heal around there. And that is our responsibility. Yeah. Finding the people that can help you heal. I'm so grateful for the people that help me heal. And now I get to be that for others. But finding that and healing that part. And when you do, the darkest places, like I didn't say this. My biggest fear is when I just knew my husband was going to pass away. I was like, I didn't think I could survive it. And I almost didn't. I almost didn't get out of that. But the fact that we get to these dark places and we bring the light in, we bring the healing. When you do that, you have so much more light to share out in the world. That's why when my mom was listening to me during a speaking tour, when I won that, speaker award, she was like, "Stephanie, I got it." She's like, "You're a soul igniter." And she said, "You ignite souls because you've taken your scar and you've turned it into your star." And I'm like sitting there listening to my mom, having this reaction of watching the people that were listening. But when we do that, we ignite ourselves and then we ignite the world. Yeah. It starts with doing the deep healing work. And this is why I see every single one of you on this call and the people that you are attracting. We are here to do that. And we are making a huge difference in the world. We are the light givers in the world. But it started with coming in and being with our darkness first.
We're the salt in the world.
We are. Yes, we are.
And one thing I wanted to say, Michelle, when you said that, because we are all empaths here, because I know each and every one of you. And what I have learned is that we're empaths because the world taught us to be very hyper vigilant about our surroundings and our environment. So we're very attuned to what's going on, and we feel things because we had to see the face that wasn't saying anything, but that was scary. So we're very attuned to what was happening to our environments. And so we do put up those walls because the world was too scary for us. And so when we couldn't share our emotions with our attuned caregivers or the people that we needed to be able to share those with, which every child needs that, we went inward.
Yeah.
And so that is a normal adaptation. That is not a flaw. There's nothing wrong with us. We are not broken. That is what happens when trauma or early childhood experiences affect us.
And I think that's where we recognize awareness going, if this is happening and this is where it's just lovingly, this is the time to take to deal with those emotions and get help in your healing. And find, because this is the path. This can
be transformed. Yes. Trauma can be transformed. Totally. Our minds are malleable. They're neuroplastic. They can change. We can create new pathways. And we can create great programs. We can be conditioned in really good, loving, healthy, joyful, holistic people.
Yes.
Exactly.
On that note, Stephanie, if someone is struggling right now or would like to start this soulful journey that you're talking about, what is your recommendation on how to get started with something like that?
I would say the first step is awareness, and then really seeing like what is happening and really identifying what you need. And from there, I mean, there's so many different modalities out there that are so helpful. For me, the number one modality is breath work, because I say breath is the bridge to your soul. Like you said, Terry, I was like, my heart breathing is like the number one way to bring me back.
Life.
It is just so easy to do. I can teach it to 5-year-olds to 80-year-olds. And so I believe, the breath is so powerful. Anything with nervous system regulation, because one thing we know is that when it doesn't matter, big T, little t trauma, or everything in between, we keep stacking this in. We call this the window of tolerance. You can't stack anymore. We
gotta widen it. Widen it.
Yes. And that is, so finding that nervous system regulation that you can do to bring yourself back into regulation, because when you are regulated, you can heal. And now we're not in this trauma state or survival state. We're learning to repattern ourselves, like you said, repattern our mind, neuroplasticity, all of those things energetically. I mean, it's amazing what can happen when you do this work. And I will say this, we all know here, we have been through it. It is not an easy path. No. It is not an easy path, but it is so worth it. And one thing I say all the time when I talk, I used to say I would be rich, so rich, if I could just get even a dime for how many times I said, why God, for all the things that happened to me. But you know what I can say now with absolute certainty? Now I say, thank you, God, because not only this is such a gift for me to know and to be able to heal and to be able to help others on their journey. And I believe if you don't go through it, it's almost impossible for you to sit next to someone that's going through it, because you feel that and they know that. And again, that regulation, they can feel it in your energy field. And so start there, get help, because it's not easy to do alone. And I don't think you should do it alone. That's why everything I create and what I do has a support system.
I don't think you can do it alone.
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't do it alone, because it needs to be, and it needs to be with someone that really understands and can walk you through that process, because it takes an expert to do that with you.
And there's 2 people on this episode that do that kind of work. Terry and Stephanie, for sure. So if you guys want to get in contact with either of them to work with them, we will have the links to that in the show notes here. We'd love for you to do that and get in contact, because it's important for us to build a community of people around us that support us. We don't always do that. Sometimes we put the wrong people around us to try to support us. And that's
only because it's all we've ever known. And so
it's habit.
Can just say, I didn't know any better, but I do now.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming on today. This was very helpful. I really related to it. I thought it was powerful. I think people need to hear it. I think people can take little points of that and be able to relate to it in whatever way that makes sense to them. But I think the goal here, this is the reason why we started this podcast, you guys.
Yes.
Because we were having conversations amongst ourselves, the 3 of us, and going, how can we spread some love and light out in the world to try to help people anyway, small steps, whatever it takes. That's the whole point of this podcast. And Stephanie fits right into that conversation with what she's doing. And so this is so important for us. And we hope that you can feel a little bit of love and light that's going through the computer screen or your phone screen or whatever it is, because that's the intention.
We're sending it to you, holding my heart, and we're sending it out.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, everyone. We love it. Again, like and subscribe. Please share this out to someone who needs to hear it. Comment below too. If you related to something and want to comment on it, please do. And if it's a question, even if you have for Stephanie, we'll make sure she gets the question. We'll make sure she can answer it. So if you have a comment, please do that. And we would very much appreciate it and look forward to future episodes. Thanks so much for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.